Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to welcome you to the business meeting of the Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority Board of Trustees. I'm David Howard, the chairperson, and I will be presiding over the meeting this evening. We'll start the meeting with introductions, and we'll start to my right and start with you, Ms. Jones, and we'll go around the room.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Katrina Jones-Young, and I am an appointee from
Make sure we
the
turn
City
the
of
microphone
Charlotte.
on.
It's on.
It is on? Okay.
It is. Hello, everyone. I am Katrina Young, an appointee from the City of Charlotte.
Ken Shore, appointee of the county.
Jeff Robbins, Town of Pineville.
I'm Charles Bowman, City of Charlotte.
Brad Simmons, Town of Mint Hill.
Wyatt Dixon, City of Charlotte.
Mike Bryan, Mecklenburg County.
David Longo, North Carolina General Assembly.
Lucia Zapata Griffith, City of Charlotte.
Bob Menzel, Town of Cornelius.
Julie Eiselt, Mecklenburg County.
Christy Long, City of Charlotte.
Ned Kern, North Carolina Senate.
Frank Emery, City of Charlotte.
David Howard, City of Charlotte.
Red Cagle, Interim CEO, CATS.
Brad Thomas, City Attorney's Office.
Todd Collins, City of Charlotte.
Dana Sujanki, Town of Matthews.
Justin Harlow, Mecklenburg County appointee.
T. Anthony Lindsay from Huntersville.
Alicia Stedman, Mecklenburg County.
Cameron Pruitt, City of Charlotte.
Reverend Corinne Mack, City of Charlotte.
Matt Walt, Town of Davidson.
Jocelyn Jones Nolly, City of Charlotte.
Clayton Seeley, Mecklenburg County.
Emily Kunze, CAT staff.
All right, thank you. Just some housekeeping before we get going. For tonight's meeting, members of the public may access and view the meeting on the Gov channel or Gov channel of YouTube, our CATS YouTube channel, our Spectrum Cable channel 16. The agenda and the meeting materials for tonight's meeting were posted on our website, ridempt.com. There is additional overflow space across the hall in room 266, where this meeting is being live streamed. As we proceed, so that we maintain accurate records, I would ask the trustees to please identify yourself by name and your appointed body before speaking or making a motion. And remember to turn your microphones turn them on at your table in front of you before making remarks. So the first item on our agenda, am I doing public comments or the minutes first? So the first item on the agenda for approval is the meeting summary. So the board members received a draft of the January meeting summary in your packets. Can I get a motion to approve the proposed meeting summary?
Ned Kern, North Carolina Senate, so moved.
Justin Harlow, second.
It's been properly moved and second that we approve the meeting summary. Any discussion, comments, questions? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying yes. Yes. Approval of the same sign is carries. Just so you know, we will do roll call on a few votes tonight, but not the procedural ones. So we actually have public comment time now. We actually have two speakers. And actually for the speakers, you guys are our very first speakers ever in the history of the MPTA. So we're looking forward to that. So with that, know that we're asking all speakers to come to the podium right here in front of me. You have 3 minutes to speak, and our clerk will keep the time. So first up is Carson Cone. All right, Carson, you're making history. Make good on it.
First of the first.
Got me nervous. Good evening, everyone. MPTA, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to first state how much I appreciate the attention to detail and friendly manner of the authority at this special meeting held in January. As I discussed with T. Anthony Lindsay, I believe you all are laying a strong foundation for a healthy and sustainable future. While justice has its place, I do personally believe that we live in one community as one family. This past Saturday, I volunteered helping feed and clothe those in need. There was a man who told me he had been wearing the same pair of socks for the last 2 weeks. Another person had been hit by life so hard that he could not speak but could express that he desired a pair of used socks to wear as gloves. These sorts of individuals rely on public transportation because they have no other method of travel. It is for these people, among others, that your impact will be felt, and it can be a profound impact. As a part-time bus rider and a concerned resident, I have many points of interest that I wish to share with you all at future meetings. However, tonight, I urge you to pay close attention, as I know you have, Cameron, to the fair study of the CATS Public Transit Advisory Committee, which I expect to likely come to you all for a vote of acceptance or not. This study, originally and possibly currently, among other things, makes 2 recommendations that come with it, that come with a contactless payment system on transit, and they are taking feedback, so it could be altered. But the 2 recommendations are the first being a requirement for the majority of riders, those who pay with cash, to either reload a card at a participating location or to have to pay double for any and all trips that are transfers. The other recommendation is to provide half-price vouchers and not full vouchers to low-income individuals, such as those on FNS, also known as food stamps. This is a serious problem to the poorest of the poor, for if a person has no money, they cannot afford a half-price voucher and may not be able to get into a shelter that would offer such a voucher. Currently, Roof Above is the only one that offers that. To these people, not offering a full price voucher is a decision that would say, you are being left to perish. Thank you.
Thank you. Board, we actually will hear a few comments about the fair study from Brett, and I think we're taking it up at the retreat too, so just so you know. All right, and the next speaker is Marcel Villalot. Villalot. I knew I was gonna mess it up. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority. My name is Marcel Villalot, and I am here on behalf of the Charlotte Metrolina Central Labor Council, representing over 20,000 union members in our region. Many of our members are working to help run the public transportation system, are part of the construction crews working to expand it, do repairs, and most importantly, use it to get to work. The goal of our council is to make sure the working standards of workers are protected, that employees go to work with dignity, complete their jobs in a safe environment, and can provide for their families. This month also marks the 4th anniversary of the murder of CATS bus driver Ethan Rivera while he was operating a CATS bus. We request that the safety of our operators and maintenance crews be prioritized by the board, and that the board does everything it can to avoid repeating such events. Second, affordability and reliability. The sales tax is an added cost for families in Mecklenburg County. They expect that the MPTA doesn't stall in expansion projects and has the best intentions to provide a world-class service. Over the years, riders have lost confidence in the service because of its long wait times for service and limited connections. Many of these issues stemmed from a lack of staffing in different departments as well. Many of our workers rely on affordable and reliable service to get them to their places of employment, like the thousands of workers we represent at the Charlotte Airport. Many of them work for low wages, and they need to rely on this service to get to work on time so they don't lose their jobs. The Charlotte Metrolina Labor Council wants to be a resource for the board and work in sync to provide input when necessary on how the decisions you make can affect everyday workers in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, please clap. They were our first one, Joe. That will conclude our public comments section. Moving on to item number 5. Next, we will move to our information items. We have 3 tonight. The first one is a presentation we did not get to last month, and that is a presentation, and then take questions at the end. So if you'll kind of write notes as we go along, that would be preferable so we can get through it. You should also know that we will get another shot to hear even more information during our February the 20th workshop. All right, so with that, Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Goforth. I'm the Chief Development Officer for CATS, and thank you very much for the opportunity to provide an overview of the 2055 Transit System Plan. So tonight I'll provide a high-level summary of what is the Transit System Plan, what's included in the plan, and focus on some key upcoming decisions. So the 2055 Transit System Plan is CATS's long-range transit plan that lays out the future vision for transit in the region. It builds upon and refines the previous plans that began 25 years ago with the 1998 Transit Land Use Plan. The current adopted Transit System Plan combines our two primary plans, the Better Bus Plan and the Rapid Transit Corridor System Plan. The plan outlines the goals and priorities for the transit program for the next 30 years, and it includes a fiscally constrained implementation plan. The fiscally constrained plan identifies the services and projects that can be funded with available funding sources, including the sales tax that was approved in November. In other words, the fiscally constrained plan identified what we can afford to do. To develop the updated and fiscally constrained transit system plan, CATS undertook a three-step process in late 2024 and 2025. First, we confirmed the goals and baseline assumptions of costs and revenues. Second, we developed and evaluated alternative scenarios. And finally, we developed a recommended implementation plan based on the financial analysis. The update included public engagement throughout the process. And community engagement is really an integral part of the transit planning process that we undergo. We had a very robust engagement process throughout this update. Some of the statistics from that outreach effort are listed here, and you also received a detailed public engagement summary and a follow-up to your request at your first meeting. What we heard during this process is about the importance of bus service improvements, a confirmation of the public support for the proposed rail projects, and a sense of urgency to implement as quickly as possible. The website for the transit system update process is also still live. It's listed here on this slide, and so you can find some additional detail about the process and the alternative scenarios that we looked at on that website. The 2055 Transit System Plan was adopted by the Metropolitan Transit Commission on May 28, 2025. The plan calls for the implementation of the Better Bus program, including improved frequency, service expansion, microtransit, and bus stop improvements. It also outlines a phased implementation of the rapid transit corridors. The adopted transit system plan is also being included in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which will be adopted by the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization this spring. And this is a required step for our projects in order to be eligible for federal funding. So what's in the plan? The Better Bus program includes a significant expansion in service with a 50% increase provided within the first 5 years. This includes improving our 15 highest ridership routes to 15-minute frequency, which would provide improved transit service to over 60% of existing riders. All other routes would also be improved to 30 minutes or better service. In addition, the Better Bus program includes full implementation across the county of microtransit, which is an on-demand shared ride service within a defined zone, And those are the gray shaded areas shown here on the map. Better Bus also includes priority bus corridors with signal priority. The program also includes bus stop amenities for over 2,000 bus stops, operator support facilities, the renovation of the primary uptown bus facility, the Charlotte Transportation Center, as well as construction of a bus facility at the Charlotte Gateway Station. The implementation plan prioritizes bus service improvements, which is the backbone of our system and is essential for many residents in our region to access jobs, educational opportunities, and essential services. All bus route improvements and microtransit zones, which will expand our transit service to over 100 square miles, are proposed to be implemented quickly and be operational within 5 years, with the capital improvements at our bus stops and transit centers within 10 years. The Rapid Transit Corridor System Plan includes the Red Line, Silver Line, Gold Line Extension, and Blue Line Extension. This map shows both the full alignment for the locally preferred alternative, which is the long-term vision for the transit line, and it also shows the minimum operable segment for the Silver Line and the Blue Line extension. The minimum operable segment, or MOS, defines what can be built within the financial capacity of the new sales tax. In tonight's presentation, I'm going to give a brief overview of each project, and we plan to provide some additional detail on our priority projects at a future meeting. So the Red Line is a proposed 25-mile commuter rail service with 10 stations. The locally preferred alternative alignment is from Charlotte Gateway Station in Uptown Charlotte to Mount Morn in Mooresville, providing regional connections between Uptown Charlotte and Huntersville, Davidson, and Cornelius, with the potential to extend to Mount Morn in Mooresville. The capital cost estimate is about $1.38 billion in 2024 dollars, with the portion within Mecklenburg County at $1.26 billion. In order to implement the portion in Iredell County, an agreement would need to be reached with Mooresville and Iredell County regarding funding for that portion of the project. The project is currently estimated to take between 8 and 10 years to complete. The proposed operating plan is 30-minute peak service in the peak periods and 1-hour frequency midday and weekends. And this is a very robust commuter rail service. CAT staff, along with the Red Line consultant team, which is led by HDR Engineering, have been working the past couple of years to update the design of the Red Line, including a public engagement process on the project goals and station locations. And of course, we completed negotiations with Norfolk Southern in 2024 to acquire the O-Line and develop a comprehensive rail agreement which outlines the rights and responsibilities of the parties to operate both commuter rail and freight service in the corridor. Our next steps include adopting a revised locally preferred alternative with updated station locations, and as I mentioned, coordinating with the towns of Davidson and Mooresville and Iredell County regarding the end of the line station. The next phase will be to complete 30% design and the environmental document and initiate the federal project development process to be eligible for federal funding. We'll also undertake an assessment of project delivery strategies and the project schedule to evaluate the fastest possible delivery for the Red Line. And of course, we'll continue our coordination with local partners, stakeholders, and public engagement as well. The Silver Line is a proposed 29-mile light rail line with 29 stations. The locally preferred alternative, which again is the long-term vision, would run in the west quarter from Belmont to the airport in Uptown Charlotte, and then parallel Independence Boulevard to the southeast, serving East Charlotte and Matthews and terminating in Indian Trail. The recommendation for the minimum operable segment in the fiscally constrained plan is from the airport to the station at Bojangles Coliseum in East Charlotte. The cost estimate for the airport to Coliseum project is $3.3 billion in 2024 dollars, with an estimated project duration of 9 years. The operating plan is for 10-minute peak service with 15 to 20-minute off-peak and weekends. And CAT staff and our consultant team, which is led by WSP and STV, have been advancing the design for the past few years. 15% design has been completed on the western segment, with 30% design completed on the southeast. For the Silver Line, the immediate next step is to complete the study required by the PAVAC to see if the Silver Line as light rail can be extended further to the east. There are two aspects to the study: value engineering, or ways to reduce the cost of the project, and an evaluation of additional funding sources to supplement the new sales tax. We'll also provide some more details about the scope and the process for this study at your upcoming retreat. The Gold Line is a proposed streetcar extension 2 miles to the west to Rosa Parks Community Transit Center and 4 miles to the east to the Eastland Community Transit Center. The cost estimate for the Gold Line is $380 million for the west extension and $465 for the east extension. The Gold Line design study, led by the consultant team AECOM, was also initiated in the past 2 years to update the design, evaluate ways to improve the travel time and reliability of the service, as well as to confirm stop locations. The next steps in the Gold Line study include the technical analysis to determine any changes to the recommended alignment, whether that's side or median running, and updating our locally preferred alternative, including our station locations. And from there, we would work to complete the update of the design in the environmental document, along with continued public outreach. The Blue Line extension is a 5-mile extension of the Blue Line from the existing end-of-the-line station at I-45 South Boulevard to Ballantyne. The minimum operable segment included in the fiscally constrained program is from I-45 South Boulevard to Carolina Place Mall in Pineville, with an estimated cost of $700 million. The Blue Line extension is the result of a planning study that was completed in 2018, and no further design has been completed to date. Future improvements on the Blue Line would also include platform extensions on the existing Blue Line to expand our system capacity. As I mentioned, the transit system plan update included the development of a financial model and a detailed financial analysis to identify a program that is feasible, realistic, and implementable. The financial plan represented a snapshot in time, and it will change and evolve as the program advances. The adopted plan includes a phased implementation strategy, and this outlines the implementation plan in short, mid, and long-term stages. The immediate focus will be on implementing the Better Bus improvements. This will meet the urgent need for expanded transit service all across Mecklenburg County. And we'll also begin the Red Line commuter rail service as the first priority, as well as advance the Silver Line. In the midterm, service would begin on Silver Line, Gold Line extension, and Blue Line extension. All projects within the fiscally constrained program would be complete in 30 years. Finally, in the long term, both the Better Bus program as well as the Silver Line and Blue Line could be extended as our financial capacity allows. And finally, just to quickly recap some of the key next steps and upcoming decisions. For the Red Line, recommendations on station locations and the terminus, as well as an evaluation of project delivery, risks, and schedule in order to deliver the project as quickly as possible. For the Silver Line, completing the required payback study to evaluate options to extend the line further, and then advancing the Silver Line in design and environmental as well. And finally, the Better Bus rollout plan will be outlining a route prioritization process and a recommendation for bus service improvements in FY27, as well as a microtransit strategy. And with that, thank you very much. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
So, well, I just want to remind everybody, we do get another shot at this at the retreat. So if you just have questions you want to get clarification on, we can do that now. And Christy's gone. She was going to help me with catching people. So Emily, will you help me? So we'll start with Lucia.
Yes, only one question. Do you have projected ridership for each of those lines?
We are still working on developing our ridership projections. We are updating our ridership modeling in conjunction with the Regional Transportation Planning Organization. They are underway with an update of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, as I mentioned. So we're working in concert with the updates of the forecasts on land use and travel patterns to update our ridership model and update our ridership projections. So that will be part of the process over the next year, really developing good ridership projections that we can share with you all.
I don't see any other hands. Okay. Who's next? Dr. Harline.
Yes, thank you. That's all right. And thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the split out between the locally preferred alternatives and the MOS, the minimum operable segments. The capital costs that are in here, I'm assuming, are for the MOSs. Do we have some type of estimates for the locally preferred alternatives?
Yes, we do. Yes.
And I don't necessarily need them right now, but could we get those provided at the retreat for us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Who's next?
I have Corinne, Alicia, and Julie.
Okay, Corinne.
I wanted to know if there was any opportunity to address the two speakers' issues that were brought forth today. We can probably resolve that further in the retreat, but I would like for you to revisit those two issues that was brought to you tonight, as well as looking at some of the locations that do not have transit systems coming to the particular area. Those issues were brought to you prior to tonight, and I didn't see any changes in your presentation. On both the red line and the blue line, there were some concerns brought regarding express trains that would bypass certain stations where there would be long miles of individuals who would not have transit system.
So Reverend Mack, let me start by saying happy to address the speakers and follow up with the speakers, but related to, so there's a little bit of government speak here, and we'll try to do our best not to do that. When we refer to the locally preferred alternative, that is the approved locally preferred alternative, or LPA, as it sits today. As the MPTA makes decisions, Ms. Goforth stated that one of the decisions will be addressing or adjusting, making decisions about the final LPA, or locally preferred alternative. And what that really means is, to your specific question about station locations, that's exactly what the process is for as we finalize the LPA for the red line, the silver line, the gold line, for all lines. That LPA becomes finalized, and it is within the realm of policy decisions associated with this body as you make decisions related to transit into the future.
I appreciate that, but as we stated in several meetings prior, all the committee meetings, you heard this over and over again. That was a concern, so I was hoping that at least that was addressed at some point prior to tonight's presentation.
Yeah, so it is certainly a concern we have heard through community engagement. Other concerns as well. One is the red line name itself. And so as we start to bring that forward and this body makes decisions, and in this period where MTC exists and MPTA, we'll work through that, but those will all be things that are brought forward as those decisions, as we talk in more detail about each of the lines, and then as this body makes decisions about the next steps to take.
I yield to additional conversations.
I've been hanging out with my friend Frank, so I'm going to repeat what I think I heard Ned say. I think what he's saying is that MTC voted on the plan that we saw. The next time it gets voted on, this body will probably get to vote on it.
That's what I heard him say.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for the presentation, Kelly. I just have a question and probably more of a small request. I know that this plan was adopted, but there are possibly a few supplemental studies that were done around anti-displacement, equitable transit-oriented development. Can we have those, copies of those, or maybe a short presentation about those studies at our retreat?
Absolutely, yes. So there was a silver-line TOD study that addressed many of the issues that you're discussing. We can provide a copy of that initial study. The follow-up study, which is the transit-oriented community study, is underway, and we can definitely give an update and a briefing on the status of that work.
Thank you. Julie.
Thank you. Julie Izelt, Mecklenburg County. One question I have, and it can be answered at the retreat, could you give us an update on the transit center and what has happened with, it's not going underground, I guess, at this point? And since then, what has happened with the plans for that, for the renovation?
Yes, and we can definitely give a more detailed update on the Charlotte Transportation Center. We do have some updates underway, some renovations underway. We completed a condition assessment last year, and we have some initial priorities that we're trying to move forward with, institute of a fair zone, some modifications in one of the pavilions to have more secure site. So, we're closing some sections of the bathrooms. We have vacated the retail tenants to allow for those improvements that are needed at the transit center to move forward. And we're currently working on what is the scope of the full renovations. And we really need to, I think, provide a more detailed briefing about what the options could be at the Charlotte Transportation Center for the board to consider.
And that's really what I'd like to hear is the bigger picture, not just renovations, but do renovations mean there is no long-term plan to, to really modify that transit center like initially was conceived, and then how does that fit into the whole Gateway Center plan? So just sort of a higher level review of where that all stands.
Absolutely, we can prepare that for you. We've tried to focus our short-term renovations on items that are really needed immediately, and that kind of preserve that future decision for the board to make.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you for your presentation. I actually have a request, and Brett touched on it in his response earlier. Is it possible to get the emerging or common themes that from the community engagement sessions that are not necessarily factored in the plan, particularly as we prepare for our planning day? I think that'll help inform some decisions that we're going to be making.
Yes, we can provide that.
Thank you.
Jeff Robbins, Pineville. Curious, in each of the budget for each of the LPAs, is there a separate breakout that we'll see in terms of the amount allocated in the budget towards displacement?
So the cost estimates for the project include the construction costs, real estate costs, which would include acquisitions and relocations necessary to complete the project, vehicles, acquisition, and professional services. So we can provide a breakdown into those various categories if that's desired. And I would say the projects are really early in the design phase, so those estimates in terms of impacts to properties are very preliminary at this point. As we move forward into the environmental process and further into design associated with that, we'll have more detail, and we'll be sharing that detail with you as well.
Perfect. That was my follow-up.
Yes.
So mine's more of a comment as well, but obviously the better bus of all of these plans is the most malleable, if you will. I'd love to have at the retreat just a little bit of an insight into the process of route selection, as well as microtransit opportunities. Looking at this map, there's a lot of places that are lower income that do not have bus service and do not have micro transit service, like the Belmont neighborhood, right beside Uptown. So would love to just have a little bit more insight into that process.
Yes, okay, absolutely. We are currently preparing a presentation that will kind of outline the prioritization process and the factors that we're considering when we make those recommendations as to the rollout plan for the
Wonderful,
bus
thank
program.
you.
Yes.
And Mr. Collins, I think, for the finish.
Yes, along those same lines, could we get that same prioritization for the enhanced bus stops as well?
Yes, yes. We will also cover the bus stop prioritization process as well. Absolutely.
And one thing to note on the bus stops, so we do have a prioritized list. That there is one of this body's future policies is how do we prioritize bus stops? The MTC has that. It's a matrix that has a scoring system. We have that list currently, and it gets updated. But one of the oddities, and we can talk more about this in detail at the retreat, is because of microtransit, the actual number of bus stops in the system starts to reduce. Because microtransit, the bus stop is where you are, right? You don't go to a bus stop, the vehicle comes to you. So again, as we start to think about how it all interconnects, we can talk more about that at the retreat as well. Okay.
We're loading up the retreats. After the retreats. So hopefully we'll keep it high level, because at some point, we're going to bylaws, which give us committees. Committees will take this up. So we don't have to solve it all. So thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
And now I'll turn it over to Brent for his CEO report.
Thank you. I will try to be brief. I have a few items to update you on. The Local Government Employee Retirement System, or LGERS, as we refer to it. Wanted to give you a brief update on that. That is a very important process to ensure that the MPTA becomes an enrolled member of LGERS. The City of Charlotte is an enrolled member, so the roughly 650, 700 employees of the City of Charlotte are already in that pension system. The PAVE Act requires the MPTA to be a member. As with all government processes, there's a system, right? There's a process for how to do that. We are in communications with LGERS. They're really excited. This might be the first new member that they've had in many, many years. So they're pretty excited about it, as we are too. It's not every day that a new governmental entity is created in North Carolina, but November 4th was that day for us. So the process, we will anticipate bringing 3 resolutions before this body, either at your first February retreat or workshop or your March meeting. Those resolutions are specified by LGERS to be approved as part of the application process. They are required for the filing, and it is a hard and fast deadline. They make their determinations in April each year, so we need to hit the April deadline this year, or you wait till April next year. So that is very, very important, and we are working through with LGERS. They're being very supportive, and we are working through the resolutions that they require to bring those forward to this body, probably on February 20th, but possibly on your first March meeting.
Did you raise your hand? Did I see a hand go up? I did not. Okay. Before you, are you moving on to the next one?
I was. But
real quick, just to frame this for you guys, this is part of the personnel HR move. There are a lot of other steps involved in that, but this is the one that needs to be done now. So it's kind of out of sequence of giving you the full picture. But because of the deadline going into next year, we needed to pull the trigger on this now. But just know that this is one of many that has to be done if we intend to make some moves before the end of the year. If not, we have to wait. So just so you know, there's a bigger picture coming. Okay?
Yes, agreed. A much bigger picture coming. That's one little piece of it. The FTA provided to CATS the results of their audit. You'll recall that in the wake of the tragic murder of Irina Zarutska, the FTA launched an audit of our Agency Safety Plan, or ASP. You will also see that referred to at the federal level as the Public Transit Agency Safety Plan, or PTASP. For us, they are the same document. The ASP is a federally required document, and it establishes a framework for how we identify, evaluate, mitigate, and communicate around safety hazards, including security incidents. So let me start with where we did a good job, and then I'll move on to the 18 findings. The FTA had no findings in 2 areas. They said that there were no findings in our ability or our efforts to identify safety hazards. And secondly, they said there were no findings in our ability or efforts to mitigate safety hazards. And so that, I think, is really important. What they're saying is we go out and actively identify hazards, whether they be safety hazards in how we operate or security hazards to operators, to passengers. And when we identify those, we mitigate them, right? We take measures to reduce that risk, to mitigate those hazards. Now, there were 18 findings and 6 recommendations. Rather than, and everyone on this body should have received copies of that audit, rather than go through each specific finding, I will say that those findings are related to processes associated with how we document process and how we conduct our evaluations when it comes to documentation. And I think the important thing to remember here is the agency safety plan became a requirement of the FTA in 2020. That's how long CATS has had an agency safety plan. It was also modified, or requirements associated with it were modified in 2024. And that's when the FTA brought in specific measures and into the agency safety plan, assaults on transit workers as part of the plan. The agency safety plan is really a reflection of the FTA's adoption of what we call safety management systems, or SMS. That is a prescribed process around evaluating, mitigating, reporting risk. SMS is something that has been common in the airport world for over a decade. The FTA adopted it a little bit slower than the FAA, but you see it being adopted. And so what the SMS and the ASP as a product of that do, really, they establish formalized processes for how you document your actions when it comes to hazards or incidents and how you mitigate those. And so, again, the FTA is saying that these things it's not that we're not doing these things, it's that we can improve our processes around how we address the ASP and go through that process. One other finding they had was related to de-escalation training. And again, the finding isn't saying that we don't do de-escalation training. In fact, since 2023, we have invested pretty heavily in developing a very robust series of trainings for de-escalation. What they're saying is twofold. One, we need to roll that training out faster. And I agree with that. We absolutely do. And two, we had focused as the de-escalation training for first line for operators for the de-escalation training. And so they say, look, that is good, but you also need to expand it to additional personnel throughout transit. And again, I agree with that. And so as we go through the process, the FTA gives us 30 days to provide responses to the audit findings. We will provide those responses. We will concur with all findings. And in those responses, we will state what we are doing to correct or remedy the finding, as well as the timeline by which we will remedy those findings. Now, please bear in mind, and we will send out to this body all of those responses, the timelines. Please bear in mind, some of those items may be very quick to remedy. Others of those items, we will act quickly, but they take a little bit longer, and I'll give you an example. One of the findings stated that we have one joint labor safety committee, or we have one ASP, and there is a requirement to have a joint labor relations committee. That's very important. We have two. We have one for the rail operations and one for bus. The requirement is you have one per ASP, and two isn't one, it's two. So it's likely, and the FTA acknowledges this, and they say you have two choices. One, take two committees and make them one to correspond with one ASP, or take one ASP and make it two to correspond with the number of committees. We will likely split the ASP into a bus ASP and a rail ASP to correspond with those committees. And an amendment or a change to the ASP is a formal process that will require review and ultimately approval of the governing body. So that may take a little bit longer as we go through that process, but it's not because we're not taking it seriously and making the changes. It just requires a little bit more of a process associated with modifying the ASP. The last thing I'll say about the ASP, it is extremely common to modify the ASP. We are on version 5. The ASP has existed for 5 years, and we are on version 5. We normally, as a normal course of business, update and modify the ASP once a year, generally speaking, at around October. But this will be a change to the ASP before October. So again, it is not uncommon to change the ASP, but normally that comes on a routine cycle once a year. Pause there.
I got two questions over here. So, Mr. Lindsay, first.
Thank you. T. Anthony Lindsay from Huntersville. Thanks for that summary, Brett. There were three things that sort of jumped out at me from reading the audit without getting to specific details. The first one was it appeared to suggest that we had some policies in place that were required and that we could improve on our adherence to our own policies. That was one thing. The other thing that sort of jumped out for me was that we have a responsibility to, and this is our own internal policy, which I think is good, but we had a responsibility to work closely with our operators to get their input on identifying and mitigating safety issues and concerns and security issues and concerns. And that was another area that we could improve on. So, and then the third one is the one that you mentioned already. But I wanted to highlight those two things because I'm curious to make sure that we are engaging in that process as quickly as we possibly can to one, make sure we're following our own policies, and two, making sure that we are not only informing our operators on those areas where we are expecting their input, but that we're actually obtaining that input. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Cameron?
I want to thank you, too, for email response to the questions I had about this earlier today. I just wanted to uplift, especially with recommendation 6. It sounds like we do have good rapport among most supervisors with, bus drivers and staff. But for me, it's critical that folks know that they have other ways to report safety concerns. I think we've all had a boss that we didn't trust 100% in our lives. And so having an anonymous hotline that's not been used for a number of years and not having documentation just gives me pause. And so I do want to just uplift that. It doesn't need to be at the March meeting. It doesn't need to be at the next workshop, but maybe in April or May, just to keep that as a thing that we get updates on of what that training is looking like, to remind folks there's more than one way to report a safety concern, as we're keeping that top of mind both for staff and riders. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Mack.
Reverend Corinne Mack, City of Charlotte. It may be helpful to have safety officers on the ground, which means in the workplace, in the crew rooms, who have a responsibility to do a safety check, maybe monthly, if not weekly. Weekly is better for me, but monthly would suffice. That would ensure that there's someone who actually has influence with your employees, who can now feel comfortable with speaking to a safety officer, and you have a better idea of what the problems are in a much quicker fashion. I believe in rapid response. I think that would be helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we'll move on to the next item. I will just do a commercial to remind us that the input that we're giving to the staff right now, he still has a report to the city until he's not. So I just want to make sure we understand we're not telling you what to do, we're giving you input for the time being.
This was all excellent input.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
I want the city to hear me say that, so we understand how this works.
Yes.
All right,
Yes, sir.
you go to the next item.
All right, we'll move through the rest of these, I think, more quickly. The Oversight Committee hearing in Raleigh, I think at our last meeting, I stated that the city of Charlotte, including myself, had been invited to attend the Oversight Hearing Committee. That committee occurred on Monday. It was live streamed, I believe, so if you had the chance to watch it, you know that they I did not testify. I was not asked any questions. I was there, but no questions arose related to specific to cats, I believe, or at least I was not called to testify. Manager Jones did testify. Chief Stella Patterson testified, as well as Mayor Vi Lyles on behalf of the city. Build grant application. Wanted everyone to be aware that the U.S. DOT recently released a Notice of Funding Opportunity, a NOFO in our speak, a Notice of Funding Opportunity for the 2026 Build Grant Program. CATS is planning to apply for a planning grant to complete the 30% design and environmental for the Red Line commuter rail project. Yes, so we're cautiously optimistic that we will be awarded that grant, and that will certainly assist us in moving forward with the planning on the Red Line. And then the last, I will say, questions came up about the fare study. CATS has been engaged in evaluating or doing what we call the fare study. And we will dive into this much deeper at the retreat. I want to assure everyone it's a little bit of a misnomer. People hear fare study and they say, well, what are you studying how much you're going to charge for fares? No, that is not what the fare study is designed to do. The fare study looks at how we accept payment and the technology around paying your fare more efficient. It also looks at how we structure our fares. Right now, we have many different fare products. We have $2.20 for one ride. We have a daily pass. We sell a 10 ride. There are all these different fare tiers and fare structures, and it's really confusing if you haven't invested a lot of time to figure it out. So what the fare study really does is look at how we simplify the structure of fares, how we integrate technology into acceptance of paying fares, it really isn't designed to look at what is the rate that we charge for a fare. The other thing the fare study does is right now, we have discounted fares based on age. If you're younger, you can get a discounted fare, and if you're older, you can get a discounted fare. We do believe that that is out of line with most transit agencies. There should be discounted fares based on need. There should be discounted fares based on veteran status, for example. There should be discounted fares based on age as well for younger folks and for older folks. And so it's also looking at that, and it's looking at other programs like fare capping. And again, we'll dive deep into fare capping. CATS has a fare capping program, but it is very limited in how it can be used, which means it's very limited in who can use it. And we want to create a system that is more equitable and based on need and allows everyone to enjoy the discounting programs that things like fare capping allow for. So fare capping, what fare capping does, if a monthly pass, and I'm just making up this number, is $40, and you don't have enough money at the beginning of the month to afford $40 right then, so you buy your ticket every day and you pay $220, well, at the end of the month, you're going to have paid more than $40 because you didn't get the benefit of buying that monthly pass. What fare capping does is allow you to buy that monthly pass on one-day installments, and when you hit $40, you don't pay any more. You cap the fare at the pass. And that's very limited because it requires some technology. And so as we think about utilizing technology, we also want to think about how we extend fare capping, not just to monthly, but down to the daily, the weekly, and the monthly level. But that's also why we start to talk about technology, because it also allows us to utilize and extend those programs to more people, which is our goal, which is also helps us to extend our reach to more people from a transit standpoint. So again, I said I wouldn't go deep into it. Maybe I went too far in, but we are absolutely willing during a workshop to do a much deeper dive into the fare study.
Real quick question on that fare study. Are you guys also studying pre-tax, like employee contributions towards transit? I know when I lived in Brooklyn for 12 years, I was able to put money aside. I know this is an employer benefit, but is that something that you guys are looking into at all?
Yeah. So we will provide you a detailed answer to that at the retreat. At the retreat. Yes.
That's the answer to everything. At the retreat. And we're going to be at retreat all night.
That's the answer to everything.
All right, is that your last item?
That's the conclusion of my report.
Everybody, any questions for Brent on any of the items he spoke about? All right, so we'll move on. Transition consultant. Through our meetings with the city, we've learned that there is a cooperative agreement that we can use to actually engage management consultant firms. And if you remember, Ned made a motion last month for you to allow the officers to start those kind of conversations. So there is a task order out on the street with people that can do that work. And just a reminder that if you receive inquiries, because we are somewhat in a procurement process, to please refer all those questions to Elizabeth, just so we can keep the process as pure as possible. I'd also like to let you know that there have been a cadence of meetings starting to happen. You saw it in the report, but just to repeat it here, the four of us have spent a lot of time together in the last couple of weeks, either on the phone or in person. We've been hard at work. We started a weekly check-in where we're jumping on the phone just to kind of do some quick check-ins. We actually got together for 2 hours last week where we actually did some transition planning. And then the next thing I'll tell you is that we started meetings with the city manager and his leadership team every other week, just to talk through the coordination with the city. And again, all 4 of us have been involved. We've also started conversations with the Department of Revenue. They're going to be our new best friends here sometime soon. So we wanted to understand kind of what their process was and what we can expect from them. We learned a lot of things we didn't know. As a matter of fact, I think it's important to keep that conversation going, so we've agreed to meet as needed, maybe every couple of weeks. We have another meeting scheduled on the 24th of this month, and we're actually including the city manager, the county manager, and I think they may bring their CFOs as well, so we can kind of get our hands around what's coming at all of us, because it's not just us, it's the city and the county that are a big part of that conversation as well. Let's see, what else do we have? So we have the workshops coming up soon. First one is going to be on March the 20th. Sorry about canceling the last one. We were being cautious. It was supposed to snow, and of course,
February 20th.
I'm reading too fast. February the 20th is coming up. We were supposed to have one last week, but this will be our first one, so we're moving everything. So you'll hear from the staff real soon about when we want to add the 3rd date again. That's what I'm trying to say. So February the 20th, just for the record. And I'll just make sure you know that please come dressed casual. We're going to be there all day, so, you know, jeans are fine. Come relaxed. We will be sending out the agenda for the day early next week, along with presentation material. The agenda is being reworked a bit around the fact that we had to change the date. We'll present the information in a timely manner for future agenda items. The last thing I'll tell you is that our friends at Center City Partners have given us their latest Center City report. You know, they do this every so many years, and this is the most updated one. They just finished it in the last month, so it's hot off the press. So any questions about any of that before we move to the action items? All right. So we have 6 items that we need to take action on tonight. The first one is revisiting the bylaws, which we started in our last meeting, and we deferred it. We deferred it for a month. And we also set up a bylaws ad hoc committee. There are 3 documents that were referred to that committee. And as I shared tonight, we're going to hear about the bylaws and the rules and procedures. I'd also like to thank, we met twice, on the 30th and February, January the 30th and February the 3rd, with the assistance of Robertson Bradshaw. 2 of their attorneys are here with us tonight. I'd like to thank the committee for their hard work, because we did dig in, and that would be Frank, that would be Christy, Ned, that would be Justin, Ken, Matt, Clayton, and Reverend Mack. The committee did vote unanimously to recommend the bylaws to this body, the updated bylaws to this body for approval. Now, the way I think I'd like to move forward is just so that we kind of keep the conversation going. Maybe we entertain a motion and a second and then get a presentation during discussion, just so that we don't spend a lot of time before we get to a motion, if that's okay. So can I get a motion to move forward with the recommendation of the committee? So it's moved by Mike O'Brien, with the county moved by David Longo, with the House of Representatives that we move forward. So now we're ready for discussion. If it's okay with you, I'm going to turn it over to Adam and James so that they could walk us through kind of what happened during that process. And if you guys will introduce yourselves. I'm sorry, that's not right. I'm giving it to Frank, who's going to introduce them.
I thought you had it right the first time. Please, gentlemen, stand up and introduce yourselves as they stand up. So we engaged, as you know, Robinson Bradshaw. That is a longstanding tough flight law firm here in the region. Their focus is on business matters, and so James and Adam have been the lawyers, the partners designated to help us, and they've met with us and answered our questions and produced draft documents. They each are very qualified in this work, and I'll be glad to hear from them now to walk us through their proposals. It's important to understand their role. So they are providing their legal advice and suggestions to us. The decision on their legal advice and suggestion is yours. Just to be clear. All right, gentlemen? Thank you.
Can you hear us with this?
Okay. It's nice to meet you all. I'm Adam Dorth Robinson Bradshaw. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to support the authority as it gets started on this important work.
You maybe stand up behind the podium.
Would you like to stand?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Just briefly, I'm James Cass, also at Robinson Bradshaw, of course. Thank you for the opportunity to work with you all.
So we provided the group with the final recommended versions that's consistent with the charge to the Bylaws Committee to take up these documents and then provide a brief summary of the key changes for the full board to consider, which is what we're doing tonight. So our process was to take all of the comments that were provided to the authority on the initial drafts, try and harmonize those to the extent we could. They weren't always consistent, but we did our best to try and take everyone's comments into account and weigh all points of view. Then we had a high-level discussion of some of the big picture, very substantive issues. That's reflected in the memo as well. For example, we talked about the question of quorum and should the authority require a majority of everybody at the meeting or a majority of the full body in order to take action, right? Like that's the kind of substantive issue that, as Frank mentioned, is ultimately for the authority to decide, but we did try and harmonize everyone's comments on that and come up with good language that reflected the goals of the group and then also the consensus of the folks on the Bylaws Committee. We'd be happy to, if it's useful, provide some detail on any individual items or a high-level summary of the changes or just to answer individual questions. What would be useful? Would it be useful to get like a quick high-level summary?
I'm going to look around the room and get some nods. Should they go through the whole memo, or do we want to ask specific questions that everybody has? I mean, we've maybe just asked questions. Okay?
Yeah, question.
All right, so who's first? Show of hands who wants to ask a specific question. All right, first up, Mr. Lindsay.
I wasn't raising my hand to go first.
You were the first one to raise your hand.
Sure you know.
Yes, he did.
I am not going first.
You're the first one to raise your hand. Do I have somebody else? All right, it looks like, all right, Peter. Peter's going to save you.
I want the benefit of somebody else's opinions.
Peter Pappas, City of Charlotte. First, thanks to the committee for working very hard to take everyone's input and get this, get the bylaws to this state where we can address them and approve them. The only thing that in reviewing them that was kind of interesting to me is the section about officers. And it looks like when you get to the, I think this is page 47, you get to the CEO, all the detailed responsibilities and duties of the CEO have been removed from the bylaws. There really are 2 sentences left about what the CEO does. And this is maybe both a question and a comment. It would seem that as bylaws, there might ought to be a little more detail about the CEO's role. I don't think it has to get so in-depth that, you're dealing with day-to-day, but it just seemed to me that bylaws should have a little bit more of an outline of what your officers are supposed to do.
Sure. You're right that we did change that significantly from the prior draft. And one of the global changes that we made was to sort of split apart the idea of board officers, the folks sitting at the front of the room, and executive officers like the CEO. We wanted that to be clear. But in looking at the duties of the CEO specifically, there were a number of different comments from people that wanted to reflect some policy priorities about what the CEO's responsibilities would be. And we thought that those are important conversations for the authority to have and figure out what specific charges and duties the CEO would have. But we thought that it would be better to do that in the context of a job description or an employment contract. And there are a couple reasons for that. One is that at a high level, if you look at sort of, bylaws for large corporations, they're often very general when it comes to the CEO. Like I think the Bank of America bylaws might say that the board shall hire and supervise the chief executive officer of the company, right? So it's very general. And I think that's appropriate here, first of all, to give the authority the benefit of these workshops and this additional training that you're getting to really have an informed idea and, receiving the reports from the interim CAT CEO and seeing, how he is handling those duties and really come up with a very thoughtful, detailed outline of what the authority thinks should be covered. The other reason was we wanted to be careful about locking in things into the bylaws, which would require a supermajority of 75% for any amendments. So we wanted to be careful there. If there were things in the CEO's job description or duties that might change over time, like, recently with the safety issues, right? The authority might have considered it important to add something specific in the bylaws to address something like that. And it would just be cumbersome to do that and a lot easier to handle in the context of a job description. So that was our thinking on the question. Ultimately, it's a policy decision for the authority to make whether you'd prefer to have a more detailed outline. It certainly could be done that way, but we just thought a general one would be more flexible going forward.
Any follow-up, Peter? Are you ready now? Oh, okay, you're still not ready, okay.
Bob Menzel, Town of Cornelius. I actually concur with both Peter and the attorneys. I do think we need a detailed job description, if you will, for the CEO. I just don't think it needs to be in the bylaws. And I think that the board can draft that at some point down the road as part of the human resources HR transition. But I would, and by the way, it appears the same thing happened with the committee descriptions as well. And I think, again, entirely appropriate to leave it out of the bylaws and let the board just deal with those things as a policy matter as they come up. Thank you.
Okay, Mike. I'm trying over here.
Thank you. I clearly recall, Mr. Chair, at our last meeting where there was some common interest regarding the attendance, and that will come at another time, separate policy. Has a date been set when we're going to work on an attendance policy?
No, that is not one of the ones approved. That's not one of the July 1st ones, right? Attendance policy is not. So there is some priority to getting the July 1st policies that are in the PAVE Act done first. But please note it is on the list.
Okay.
So, so the order would be conflict of interest and code of ethics by next month. And Christy aptly pointed out that we needed to map all the rest of the policies required and the ones we need.
Sure.
So at some point, we'll bring that forward to this body so we know what the run of show is for policies going forward.
I certainly don't want it to delay us moving forward with the bylaws, but I hope it will come forward much sooner than later.
So noted.
And also, I want to thank the committee for their work on this as well. Looking at section 2.09, the compensation, that last statement, members of the board may receive other reasonable compensation to the extent recommended by an independent advisory committee of non-members and approved by the board. It's a little squishy to me. What does that mean? Because is it an option for compensation for serving on this board?
It doesn't say nine. It just says independent. Do you see?
So,
but go on.
Just to handle the comments from the different members, some people had a very strong position that there should be no compensation, period. Other folks thought that there should be the possibility of compensation. So the way it's set up in the bylaws, it doesn't really resolve that dispute at this point, but it sets forth the process that would be required in order to adopt it, which would require a majority of the full board, and it would also require that it be done independently obviously for conflicts reasons. So to some extent, we kicked the can on that one because there were a lot of different views on the issue. But we did want to make it very clear that if there was going to be a decision made on compensation, that it needed to be done independently.
Well, thank you for that clarity, and with respect to the group that listed this here, my preference is that we strike it. I don't have an interest in being compensated to serve on this board or anything that implies that that's an option.
Some of the feedback that I got directly was if we take that option away out of the bylaws and don't allow it even to be considered, that you limit the kind of people that you get involved with this work, considering it can be so intense. That, if we want to get a wide range of people involved with decisions and on this board going forward, maybe you want to leave the option there. And if you look at bodies across the country, all of them do them different. So again, the bylaws is just to leave it as an option so that future bodies can make that decision as a policy conversation, and not that you have to go get 21 votes to put it back on the table to talk about it.
I'm clear on that. I just share my preference.
Sure,
in terms of
got it.
statement.
I just wanted to put that on the record. And if we finish this, I think that maybe the way, did somebody else want to?
David,
I'm sorry.
David, and then T.
Yes, thought you were calling.
On this point,
Waited long enough.
on this point,
Yes,
T.
sir.
Anthony just wants to go last, I can see. David Longo, North Carolina General Assembly appointee. I concur completely with the manager. I do not think that it was contemplated when the PAVE Act was written that people would receive compensation, and I cannot support that. Although I can support almost everything in the bylaws, I could not support without moving that out. And I do think that we put ourselves at risk for critique from the General Assembly if we were to include that. So I would caution highly against including that language.
Anybody else? Who's next, Kristen?
If no one else raises their hand, we'll close it out with
No,
Mr. Lindsay.
Julie's right beside you raising
Julie,
her hand.
I didn't see you.
That's okay.
Okay.
I have a
No.
comment on this point.
So I'm just playing, Julie Eiselt, Mecklenburg County, just to play devil's advocate. I didn't envision that any of us would be compensated, except if you're talking about expenses, if there is in the future a subset of people that would go to another town to visit a transit system, wouldn't they want to be compensated for that expense? And so I don't have a problem tightening up that language so that it's clear what that might be for. And that would be fine, but not to preclude that
Well,
from.
I agree with that, and I see that captured in the first statement. It's the second statement that I felt was a
Okay,
little
yeah,
loose.
no, I would agree
So-
with that.
So, I mean, Brendan's reminding me that this is compensation, that's reimbursement. So there is a policy around reimbursement with CATs.
As you develop your policies, you could also develop a reimbursement policy for travel or related expenses. Again, but I think Mr. Bryan is correct. It does state it in the first sentence, although I think that is also can be handled in policy.
So I have a question.
Peter?
Peter Pappas, City of Charlotte. So can we just make that maybe a little clearer, that it's not compensation, it's reimbursement for direct expenses?
Well, it actually says in the first sentence, what he's reminding me, each board member will receive reimbursement for actual expenses necessary. So he's saying it's in there.
No, I'm just saying strike compensation.
Well, say reimbursement. The second sentence talks about compensation.
You're saying strike the whole thing. You're saying just strike the last
No,
sentence.
I'm saying leave the part about reimbursement. Excuse me, I may not have gotten this exactly right, but leave the part about reimbursement. I'm just saying, I'm listening to Mr. Longo's comment about the General Assembly, and I don't know that I was aware of that. That's a pretty meaningful comment, so maybe we ought to just take compensation out and leave reimbursement in there. That's a suggestion.
Lucia?
Yes, I agree with that statement, by the way. But on Section 805, insurance, is there a scenario where the authority may not purchase insurance? Should that be the authority will purchase and maintain insurance?
Oh, wait a minute. Let's jump to another section.
805, Adam.
Right. And I'm sorry, what was the specific question?
So the question is, well, the statement says here, the authority may purchase and maintain insurance. Is there a scenario where it may not? Shouldn't that say the authority will or shall may purchase and maintain insurance? So otherwise.
Right. So that would be really up to the authority. We left it as a conditional statement, but it could be made mandatory.
He's saying why. Is there a reason why you left it?
There are a lot of complicated issues around insurance when it comes to public bodies, and we wanted to leave it a little bit flexible for that reason. I think in this circumstance, and we've discussed this with counsel for cats as well, we think it does make sense to purchase insurance, but it is a complicated question, so we were not locking it in there. And of course, if the authority chooses to purchase insurance, that will happen.
So I appreciate you leaving the option, but I think we as a body should make that an obligation of the authority to buy insurance for all of our protection, really.
There's no legal reason that couldn't be changed to make that mandatory.
Thank you.
So I think that.
I'm asking Cat's attorney if he wanted to chime in on it.
Yeah, and I think that, on the sentence here, it mentions shall purchase insurance at any time on behalf of the authority against any liability asserted against or incurred by any such person in any such capacity or arising out of his or her status as such, whether or not the authority would have the power to indemnify such person against the liability under this article. I guess what I'm thinking is that the language here preserves the option for the board to do that in the event that gives rise for the need of insurance would be something that the board may not approve of. So I think that you could make it mandatory, but I think also this is looking at what are you buying insurance for and what's the reason you're buying insurance for that individual. And so this leaves the door open for the board to say, well, in that instance, we don't think insurance is appropriate because of the action that was, the cause of the need. So, but I think that is up to the board how they want to handle that.
So I want to make sure I'm clear. This is not talking about liability or director's insurance for the board. This is something different?
It does not say that.
This is insurance.
It is talking about liability.
Insurance regardless.
That's what that policy is for.
For the board and for executive officers.
All right, so we have Shell on the table. Anything else, Lucia?
No, that's it.
All right, who's next?
I have a comment on this section, Mr. Chair.
You want to go now? You don't want someone to go in front of you?
I'll defer. I'll defer, but I do have a comment on this section.
Reverend Mack.
I just want to Reverend Corinne Mack, City of Charlotte, I just want to rise to support my sister who just spoke. The language may is not definitive. Shall or will is. And as a board, we do need to have some level of protection in reference to insurance. So we probably should change that language from may to will or shall.
Anyone before Mr. Lindsay?
Last word, Anthony.
So on this particular item, I did have concerns as well. Since this section is part of the indemnification article, my concern is that it appears that any claims that are in excess of the insurance become the responsibility of the member individually. And I'm not sure what the reason is that the duty of the authority, it should not be the duty of the authority to seek whatever additional protections are necessary to ensure the full indemnity for the individual member if it's been determined that that member is entitled to indemnity. This states that if any part of an insurance policy is paid, that completes the full responsibility of the authority under this article for indemnity. And that leaves open the possibility that the insurance may be insufficient, and then the member becomes individually liable for any claim above that amount. It also ties back to the rest of this paragraph, section or Article 8, where we talk about the reasonableness of a particular claim against a member. And it seems that reasonableness is a determining factor as to what amount of payment the indemnity would cover. So if someone made a claim that was an unreasonable claim, it appears that there's a possibility that this indemnity may not cover that. And I'd be opposed to that kind of language.
You want a response?
Sure, I think I can answer both of those questions if that's all right. On the question about the insurance relieving the authority of the obligation, are you referring to the second to last sentence there on that section about insurance?
It's the section that begins with any full or partial payment made by an insurance company under any insurance policy covering any person entitled to indemnification under this article and made to or on behalf of such person shall relieve the authority of its obligation to indemnify such person hereafter or hereunder or otherwise to the extent of such payment, which reads to me like once the insurance is paid out, whatever the insurance pays, that's the only responsibility that the authority has to indemnify the person.
Right, and it's actually that last clause there that's the critical one, is to the extent of such payment. So really the function of this is that if there's a claim and insurance makes a payment to somebody, that you can't get double recovery. You don't get money from the authority for indemnification and the insurance payment. So that's the purpose of that whole provision, is just to ensure that if there's a payment from insurance, that counts against the indemnity, but it doesn't cut off the right of indemnification. So it doesn't serve as a cap. It just makes sure that the money is being accounted for properly. And then on the question about reasonable expenses, that's a good question, and that's something that comes up a lot in fights about indemnification and advancement. But really, that's referring to is the reasonableness of the legal expenses themselves. So it's not the conduct and whether that's covered. It's just that there's a reasonableness standard so that you couldn't hire a lawyer and pay them, $5,000 an hour and expect that to be covered. It's just a sort of check on, that the indemnified person is not charging excessive expenses to the authority.
I certainly respect that. Is there some way for us to make that more clear about the reasonableness provision, in that there are specific bullets identified as subcomponents of the statement, and reasonable expenses in paragraph 801 says reasonable expenses including attorney's fees actually and necessarily incurred. So it does speak to the limitation on the attorney's fees. It doesn't speak to any of the other aspects of the claim. That's the part that concerned me.
Right, yeah, the reasonable expenses and the reasonable payments are both they're there as a check to make sure that the fees or the payments aren't excessive, but they don't give the option to say that, the reason for the claim doesn't make sense and that's unreasonable, therefore indemnification is denied. And just very big picture on this indemnification, we spent a good amount of time on this because I thought a lot of you might have served in other board capacities and with corporations and things. And it's very important to have the indemnification provision, but I do think it's a really different environment and structure here, right? So if you are on the board of a corporation, the risk that you could be subject to a claim is much higher because somebody could make a claim saying that you violated your fiduciary duty to the shareholders of the company, right? And you see those all the time filed with public companies where they'll say that the company made a bad corporate decision and the directors violated their duties to the company because they weren't, properly supervising. In this kind of context, I think that's actually a much, much lower risk. I mean, if there's some issue with a cat's, vehicle or a train, and there's a lawsuit arising out of it, there wouldn't be any need to have a separate lawsuit against the members of the authority, right? Like the lawsuit would be against the authority itself and not against you individually. So I do think the risk, even though it seems sort of similar superficially to the corporate law context, it's actually quite different when you apply it to a public body like this.
So are you suggesting, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to make changes. So are you suggesting a language change? If not, I want you to go to the next issue.
Yeah, I personally am uncomfortable with the language the way that it is. I would appreciate the clarity that Adam has just given here being reflected in the language, because unfortunately, while the instances where it may occur could be less, it doesn't preclude that from happening. And even though as a public body, I know that there's state insurance that backs up the insurance that we have here and the indemnity that we have here, but there's also a limitation on that as well. So I just want it to be clear that if we are in fact doing what we're supposed to be doing in our capacity here and fulfilling our fiduciary duty, because we do have a fiduciary duty, that we are receiving full indemnity. That's all I'm trying to get to.
Okay, I'm getting it. Well, he has the floor. Are you done?
That was it. That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to the point where it's clear that as long as we are fulfilling our fiduciary responsibility and it provides for the board to make that determination that we are in fact being fully indemnified, not partially indemnified, or that there's the possibility that it could be interpreted by some future body that, hey, you weren't entitled to indemnity beyond whatever the insurance payment is or insurance payout is.
All right, so we're over here trying to figure out how.
Sia has a question.
Okay, well, I want to make sure so I think I saw enough nods on compensation and shall to move us forward. I think I'm trying to figure out on something like what he's bringing up, what we should do next. So I just want you to know, we're going to keep going. Lucia's.
I just had it on readiness. So where did we land with that? Because you got a couple of options on the compensation.
I saw enough nods to take it out. So, I mean,
Okay.
I was going to propose it that way and see where we go. I mean, at some point, I just want to see where we are on 21 votes. So that's what I guess I'm saying. I mean, we can keep kicking this one.
Sia, and then you have something else?
So Lucia.
Yeah, the only thing is what Anthony's talking about, it relates to the first part of that. That whole section is confusing, and it leaves too many questions. I mean, look at us, we're already questioning what could happen. While you're saying a corporate board would have a different liability, I think any liability is a liability, especially when it involves humans moving in the public transportation. And if anything happens, we really, at this point, should be very clear that this is a clear language for any legal situation in the future.
Right. And just to be clear, there's no question that there would be indemnification. The reasonable language on that is just applying to the amount of fees that are paid to defend it, to provide the indemnification. And then the payments is, if there's a settlement, it's just a check that the board would say that it's reasonable. But ultimately, this is a policy question for the board to decide. These issues are very complicated, and I know it's a challenge.
Is this on this one or new issues?
It's on insurance, but this.
Yeah, Katrina had a hand up first.
I do. Katrina Young, City of Charlotte. Just to move us along, I would say for those sections that are questionable, that we just kind of pull those out separately to vote separately on whether to move those forward, but then to go ahead and approve the document, everything else. And then if anyone says I feel uncomfortable, that would be a section that we would need to vote on separately.
Support that.
Well, I don't have a motion, and I'm wondering if I can just do a nod so I can see where everybody is. But if we want to do a motion on what Anthony said, and we can do a motion on all three of these.
I mean, for me, it was clear, so I wasn't nodding, so I don't know.
You want to get Peter and then?
Oh, yeah, Peter. And then let's why don't we try a motion? Why don't we try a motion, see if we get 21 on what Anthony said, then we'll know where we are. Yes, sir.
Peter Pappas, City of Charlotte. I was just going to suggest maybe our council could tweak that language on the indemnity. I think several people are saying, look, we want to be fully covered. And I think the reasonable piece of it is what's kind of confusing it. So, can y'all clean that up a little bit and maybe bring that back to us? Because I think that's kind of the spirit of the suggestion.
That's exactly right.
I think it's a question for council, Mr. Chairman. I don't know. It's a question for everybody. I don't know. I'm just saying that one seems like there are a lot of people saying the same thing. Why don't we just?
As long as I'm going to tell you what I heard, what I think I heard you say, is that they're saying that it's only about legal fees so that you can't just run up a bill without it being reasonable. That's what they're saying. I don't know if they're saying that we're not covered. But if this is the one we want to, we can send this back to the committee.
Well, then be more specific. I would do that. Be a little bit more specific. If it's just about legal fees, then tie it to that. I mean, y'all ought to be able to word that differently.
Wyatt's next.
And then I'm
It's
gonna
the
try to
indemnity that people are focused on. Using the word reasonable makes it sound like it's connected to the indemnity. I think that's where the confusion is.
Wyatt.
It's connected to the fees.
Let's get two more and see if we can.
Three. I saw three. And,
David.
okay, three hands. Wyatt's first, then David. Wyatt, then Corinne, and then David.
Yes, Wyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wyatt Dixon, City of Charlotte. Just so I'm clear on the order of operations here, this is set up, the indemnity is set up where, as a body, we decide that someone is an indemnified person. Effectively, you've got, using a legal analogy, I guess, is it's not innocent until proven guilty. It's you have to, the body has to decide that you're indemnified, and then this kicks in. And I just want to make sure that I fully understand the process that flows through. So the first order is if something occurs, it comes to the body to determine if person X is subject to this indemnification. Is that right?
Well, the first part of it is actually mandatory, so any person who serves or has served as a member of the board or a board officer or an executive officer shall have the right to be indemnified. So the indemnification is already built in. There's not a discretionary decision about whether you get it or not.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think I heard, just to make sure, Katrina, they're reminding me, what you were saying is move forward everything except then send indemnity back.
And compensation.
Well, I don't know that you send it back unless you don't get enough votes to move it forward. But if you don't get
That's
the
what I
votes,
guess,
move it
that's what I
forward.
was trying to get. That's what I was thinking. David?
No.
No, over here, Corinne.
You actually just said what I was going to say, so I don't need to say it again. Thank you.
Now, David.
Is David Longo, North Carolina General Assembly appointee. Is there language that you can propose for us right now that would achieve versus us trying to come up with it? Is there a simple solution at the moment, or are you willing to issue a official legal opinion?
I got folks beside me,
that
David, saying we should not put them on the spot.
So that if I do get sued, I can come sue you.
I don't want to do that.
No.
Wait a minute, wait, everybody, wait, everybody.
That was
Let's,
not fair.
wait a minute. Wait, just wait 1 minute, because David still has the floor. David, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm just, the reason we hired counsel was to avoid sort of making this, language changes on the fly in the way I don't mean, that sounds pejorative. I don't mean, rather than doing it in the moment, have a deliberate process to get the language that we need. And so I would urge us not to try to have something drafted right now.
Exactly.
With respect to we've heard the aims and all that. I don't know whether there's a way to take out those things that we agree on agree on those and then send them back to come with the language, the two places I believe there are that are questionable, and that way we can make some progress, because we do need to get this going. So I put that in the room as perhaps a way forward.
And we're together on the 20th. We can, I think, change that meeting to take up some business if we need to. So I am over, where am I at, Christie?
So
Nobody else?
I think we're good, because David was the last person who I saw.
Julie's
I didn't
raising her
see
hand beside you.
I would make a motion if
Okay.
it's appropriate, that's all.
And I
I
keep
am-
missing you.
No, that's okay, I just did it.
So I mean, where we are right now, so we're clear, is that I heard us that we wanted to strike the last sentence under compensation. And I heard under insurance, we want to put the word shall. And I didn't get anything from the attorneys saying that that's not a good idea. All right, now Brad, you get the last word on this one. Wait,
So,
okay, I got another
so
attorney.
T. Lindsay had his hand up. I think you have your hand up. I'm
I
not
do. I'm just waiting till you finish, though.
The attorney wanted to chime in. Brad, what you got?
Sure, just a couple things. I would say, one, too, that just for edification purposes, that when you're acting as a public official on this board, doing transit business and making decisions about things, North Carolina recognizes public official immunity. So you have another layer of immunity in your capacity as a board member. Just wanted to point that out. Also, in terms of the section 80.805 insurance, I think that, that language was in there because if you put shall, it will obligate the board to take that action every time. And so.
Explain what you're saying, because I think we're thinking about insurance in general, and that's what Adam said. So it's not insurance in general. What do you mean every situation?
That's right. And so it talks about the authority may purchase and may maintain insurance when anyone has been assessed liability in any such capacity. And so I think that, and that is something that the board can certainly do, but if you obligate yourself to do that and you put shall, you may have a situation arise in the future where you may not want to purchase insurance for that individual because the act or the acts that give rise to the claim may not be in comport with our policy or law or what have you. So just wanted to make that point.
And I think Julie wants to try to do a motion, if we're okay with trying to do a motion. Do we have a motion? We have a motion on the floor, actually. So we're actually talking about.
We need substitute motion.
Yeah, so we're talking about substitutes or secondary? I never heard of secondary. Substitute? Is that the right thing? Secondary or substitute?
Substitute.
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 All right, Julie?
So I would like to make a substitute motion that the authority approves the Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority bylaws as presented with the exception of sections 2.09 and section 8.05, which would be brought back at a later date after council has revised language.
Second.
Well, I didn't hear the compensation. The compensation was the one that you brought out. I didn't see it. That's why I just wanted to make sure. So second?
Second.
It's been probably moved to second that we do what Julie said, and I'm not going to try to repeat it. Any questions on the motion, on the substitute motion?
Chair. Question. Bob Menzel, Town of Cornelius. I'm assuming because we're passing the bylaws, then these changes that we're going to contemplate down the road will require a 75% vote to pass. Yes. Just to clarify.
We need 75% right now.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I apologize for my misunderstanding the process. I was under the impression that we were going to continue discussing any other issues that or concerns with the bylaws before we made a vote to approve them. I understand the substitute motion now is to fully approve them with the exception of only those two items. And I have some unreadiness about other items in the bylaws. So I just want to be clear that if I'm the only person who has any unreadiness about any of the other ones, I'm certainly willing to exercise my vote in that context. But I want to make sure that everybody understood it the same way. If those were the only two items of concern with the bylaws, then I'm ready to proceed. But I do have some unreadiness about other items.
Oh, who? Dana's first, Charles will come over.
And to that point, I too have one concern about, on page 49, section 6.0A, and the at-large member for the executive committee. And this is something I'm representing the town of Matthews, and I believe all of the towns. We have a different flavor depending on where we are in our county, and I think it's really important that we have a town, a jurisdiction on the executive committee, that it's a slotted spot for the executive committee, that that the jurisdictions have someone on the executive committee at all times, because we are such a, 6 votes out of the 27, how many of us are there? 27, I believe. So I just think that's critical, and I want to put that forth to you all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just think you need to get this cleaned up and do it one time. Taking bylaws and voting on them paragraph by paragraph is not the way to do governance.
Sure. So I guess maybe a suggestion is to withdraw all of the motions and then go just defer it to the Bylaws Committee. I mean, I actually kind of feel the same way. I want to get something done, but I do have some, I don't want to do it like this.
I withdraw my substitute motion.
And then I had a motion to begin with that was put on the table. Who made that motion? That was over here.
Dave and Mike, yep.
So we're withdrawing? All right, so we've withdrawn 2 motions. Somebody want to put a motion to defer this to the committee and bring it back on the 20th?
So moved. So moved.
Been properly moved by Ned.
Mr. Chair.
Second by,
Sorry, I just, if there's other unreadiness, I think when we have the original motion to approve, whether we choose to do that or not is up to us, but then we're having we're in the middle of that discussion. And I think it would be, I know Mr. Lindsay has more unreadiness as he's articulated, and maybe others do. I think we should at least flesh that out, even if we're going to be kicking this back to the Bylaws Committee later. That way, the committee then at least has heard all of the unreadiness.
I think I wanted to just not do the 20 to 21 vote thing. Now we're down to 14 if we just want to defer it. And that way we can actually, during discussion, put the rest of the issues on the table. If somebody, I mean, I just didn't get the feeling we were trying to talk about trying to move this whole thing tonight. I didn't see 20, I could lose 5 votes on this one, and I definitely see more than 5 that we were going to lose.
So we have a motion and a second to refer to the Bylaws Committee. This is not part of the motion, but I would simply ask, all this input is very, very valuable for the sake of moving it along. Any further comments could we kind of self-impose by the end of business on Friday? You submit it to the chair, who will then share it with the Bylaws Committee for consideration.
Share with Elizabeth. Well, I mean, again, please limit it. We don't need to reopen. If you got a few things left, I mean, really, let's not reopen the whole thing. All right?
Easier for us to take that, we're going to get comments rather than to try to transcribe them here.
Yeah. So by the end of business Friday. All right? So if you have anything else left, Justin, I don't want us to keep doing this. I mean, because we already have done this an hour and 15 minutes, and we still got more stuff to do. All right? So motion on the floor, unreadiness. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Wyatt Dixon, City of Charlotte. I do think that it's great to get this to the committee, but I definitely would like to hear any other areas of concern or questions. It sounds like there may be just a couple, and I think that would be great because I think that would help inform all of us as we're able to do this.
List them quick for me so we can keep going. So Anthony, why don't you finish yours, and then we heard Dana's. Dana's yours was asking for a seat on the executive committee. Anthony, what else did you have?
So I actually do have several. I'm happy to send them in, but
could you highlight them so that
I will tell you what sections there are and give you a quick summary. So section 402A. We have the elections process in that section. And I had a question in that section about how the balloting would occur. we don't address that, and I'm wondering what would happen, because we just say election by majority, so I'm wondering what happens if we have 3 candidates for a particular office, and the votes, there are 21 people present, for example, and there's 7 votes for one candidate, 4 for another, and 10 for another. So under the rest of our rules, none of the candidates would have a majority. What would be the process? So I think we need to figure out how we would resolve that.
I think Roberts addresses that, but we'll come back with something. What else you got?
Yeah, it does, and if we wanted to defer to that, I'm comfortable with that, but I want to make sure we consider it. And then in that same section, there's a nominating process. In section 402, we are also talking about the nominating committee. And my concern is that we need to ensure that people who serve on the nominating committee are not eligible to be candidates for the office. And we don't have that provision here. In other words, we wouldn't want the nominating committee to favor one of its own members in that nomination process. So I think we should have a provision that prevents that.
Okay.
And let's see, 405. Yeah, on section 405, and this goes to the same point that I think Dana was making. I would propose expanding the executive committee and adding 3 positions to the executive committee to be voted on by the full body, and each of those 3 positions to be designated for one for the county, one for the city, and one for towns. So in addition to the officers, you had 3 at-large members, and then whatever committee members would be appointed to that. That was on section 405. And that's repeated in section 601, again, where we make up the membership of the executive committee. So it would be addressed there as well. In section 603, let me see. On the ad hoc committees, we have earlier in the bylaws, we indicate, well, actually in section 505, in section 603, we state that the executive committees are formed by, or the ad hoc committees rather, are formed by the board, and that the board has the authority to set the powers and authorities for those ad hoc committees. And then later, there's language which could be just typographical, but the last phrase in that subsection, A for establishment, it talks about ad hoc committee being designated by the chair, which is inconsistent with the other paragraphs. And then it goes on later to talk about the chair establishing terms and the chair making or removing members and so forth. So there were statements in here that gave both the chair and the board sort of the same powers, and I just think we need to clean that up. So I support the section that says that the board forms them and the board establishes the powers for them. So I think the rest of those sections should be consistent with that initial section. Those are the quote-unquote big items. I'm a little concerned that I think our pursuit of expediency is justifying us kind of overlooking some of the smaller consequential governance matters in this process. For me, another example is section 2.12. And in 212, let me get to 209, 212. Yeah, in 212, we've said that the alternates can't receive materials, and we can't, they unless they've been seated. And then here, and in this section, we say that the alternates, if they've been sworn in, then they could receive materials and so forth. And I don't really understand the reasoning why we wouldn't just swear in or have the alternates be sworn, let them receive the materials just like anybody else and attend the sessions, and so that they are prepared in the event they do have to step in the absence of a board member. If I was on my way here to a board meeting tonight and something waylaid me and I couldn't get here and my alternate needed to step in to serve in that capacity, I think that alternate should have the opportunity to do that and be prepared to do so. So I just don't understand why we would not just simply swear in the alternates and treat them like the other board members. They know that they don't vote unless they're seated. So that's an example of some of the other sort of smaller things that I believe are consequential, and they make good governance, in my opinion.
Anything else?
I could accept the bylaws with those changes.
Anybody else around the table? David, real quick.
My only because this is my question, I read it, and that's a good point, T. Anthony. I read it as alternates essentially are only come in if, like, I'm knocked out for a period of time, not to miss a meeting. That's the way I think the bylaws are written, not to step in the way you described. So that's why I didn't question it, because I thought that's what was intended. But you make a good point. Can counsel tell us what that really means?
Yeah, sure. So actually, the bylaws don't speak to whether an alternate can come in for one meeting that's missed, or if the primary needs to be incapacitated for some period of time or unavailable before an alternate can act. Again, that's kind of intentional as well, given the cumbersome nature of amending the bylaws and allowing this body the opportunity to establish policies for itself with respect to alternates. So we did want to make sure that there was the opportunity to receive materials and attend meetings. That's clear. But as far as receiving non-public information or participating in a closed session, we, for somewhat obvious purposes, needed to limit those to folks who have been seated. There's nothing in the bylaws, though, folks who have sworn the oath of office. There's nothing in the bylaws that would say that you can't do exactly what Mr. Lindsay is suggesting and have all of the alternates sworn or adopt a policy about when alternates can act. Unfortunately, the statute, when it speaks to alternates, is very open-ended.
Yeah. So as I interpret that, you're saying is if we approve this, we can address what T. Anthony would like or is suggesting in our procedures.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Yes, Reverend Mack. And anybody else have issues to put on the table? If not, we're going to vote on this motion.
Reverend Corinne Mack, City of Charlotte. I think it's important that we flush out and was absolutely around what you just said, that an alternate was someone who would step in a permanent position because of the incapacitation of the original board member. And I think that's something that we should all in the room be clear about before we move on in terms of what alternate means.
It was that was uncomfortable when we were talking about it. And the idea that somebody could come in and vote, not that any alternates, so they have one in the room, would do anything wrong, but the idea that they could just kind of come into closed session because he wasn't there and not know what we were talking about, take information back out, there was some inconsistency on how that worked. If they committed to be at every meeting, maybe we were talking about something different, but it's just unsure how that would work, to kind of have people coming and going in big conversations. So that's what we talked about. Any other issues before we take the motion to defer? Wyatt Dixon.
Mr. Chair, Wyatt Dixon,
Dixon, you
I
are the last
apologize.
word.
Something Reverend Mack said just came up in terms of the use of alternate. So, and this is really a question to council. In the event that a member from a town, where this is especially important, has a conflict of interest and they're not allowed to vote on a matter, how does the alternate dovetail into that so that that municipality could in fact have a voice? And that was a kind of out of left field thought, but something you said made me think about that. And I think that's an important, I'd just like to understand, is that a bylaws or is that a rules and procedures?
Can we agree that it's deferred and we'll bring you back something on the 20th? Okay. All right. All right.
Mr. Chair, on that point, I'm sorry, may I?
And Lindsay, we're going to send you to the, what you got?
I'm happy to go wherever you send me.
No, sir. What you got?
Again, I just want to point out that while I believe the statute is fairly open-ended, it merely says that an alternate can serve in the absence of a primary member. That's all it says. And our language here almost recites what it says. We've editorialized it a little bit by saying, and only then, but it only really speaks to the absence. So my concern is that the potential issues that are being raised now really are not germane to the intention of the alternate as it appears to be prescribed in the statute, the reason for that person being there is to take the place of the primary person when that primary person cannot serve. So I just want to make sure that we don't obviate the necessity or the rationale for having an alternate at all. If it was not the intent to allow the alternate to serve when the primary person was unable to serve, there would be no reason to have an alternate. So
we will bring back.
Bring that point.
We'll bring back an explanation for our recommendation when we come back. Promise.
Chair,
all in favor of the
process
motion?
question before you call the vote.
All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Raise. Oh, it is unread. I thought you were asking to vote.
Yeah, one unread. Just have a process question before you call the vote. Mike Bryant, Mecklenburg County. Is it your intent, you received a lot of feedback from us, is it your intent to hand that off to the committee and the attorneys, and they take a look at that, they provide another round or the feedback to those of us that have offered some comments for consideration
We will
prior
mail it
to the
back.
next meeting to
Yes.
have us say yay or nay, we're good with it. If nay, we're not, then go back to the attorneys with the intent of bringing it forward at the next meeting for us to vote on that? Or are you planning to have us see those revisions for the first time in that next meeting?
No, sir.
Okay, just
Just
want to be
like
sure.
we did with this one, you'll get it prior. In fact, this time you got it the day before and in the packet. So, and right now we get 2 shots at it because we can try to get this done by the 20th, and we're trying to schedule a meeting on the 19th. So we'll see. And if not, then we'll have the 11th of next month. So we get 2 shots to bring it back. All right, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by raising your hand. I want to see votes. That is unanimous.
Defer.
All opposed, raise your hand.
Defer.
All right, that carries. All right, let's see if we can get through something easier.
Okay.
The additional item the next item that we have was actually voting on the rules and procedures. This one only takes 14 votes. So I'm telling you now, if I see 14 votes, we're going to vote on this bad boy. So anybody got hey, let's start with a motion. Anybody want to make a motion to start the conversation?
Cameron Pruitt, City of Charlotte. I move to approve the rules and procedures as proposed.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Peter Pappas. So we've been probably moving second. Any questions of the attorneys on this at all?
Mr. Chair? I have one question, and it is, what is our process to rescind or repeal actions of the board? Since we removed that motion from the rules of procedure? Do we simply go back to Robert's Rules of Order for that matter? And if that's the case, then fine.
What rule are you talking about?
This is, well, actually, the rule was removed.
Got it.
It was item 15 of the motions, which I believe is in the procedural motions, Rule 16. It was originally there as a motion for rescission and repealing, which is to undo actions of the body. That motion was, that item was removed. So my question is, are we to rely on Robert's rules for that, or is there some place else that I might have missed in here that covers that?
James?
Yeah, so that was removed from the list of procedural motions in Rule 16, specifically because the motions in Rule 16 only require a majority of the votes cast, majority of the people present at the meeting, as opposed to the more formal manner of acting that we've set forth in the draft bylaws, which would require the affirmative vote of a majority of all voting members. So essentially, by removing the rescission and reconsider motions from the list of procedural motions, they would fall back to the general action requirements, which would require a majority vote of all of the members of the board. If you wanted to make that clearer, of course, we could reinsert it in this list, but specify that it should be a majority of the members' action.
I support the larger threshold for rescinding actions. I just wanted to be clear how that is to be done. If we're considering that as a substantive motion now rather than a procedural motion, I'm fine with that. I just think someplace we need to make it clear that that's what it is.
I think we're ready for a vote. All right? Everybody ready? All in favor of moving forward? We're going to do a roll call on this one, right? Because it's a major document. So, Clerk, you want to lead us through that real quick?
Yes. Yes, we're going to start out with Wyatt Dixon.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Todd Collins.
Yes.
T. Anthony Lindsay.
Aye.
Reverend Corinne Mack.
Yes.
Peter Pappas.
Yes.
Ned Curran.
Yes.
Mike Bryant.
Yes.
Matthew Walt.
Yes.
Lucia Zapata Griffith.
Yes.
Kenneth Shore.
Yes.
Katrina Jones-Young.
Yes.
Justin Harlow.
Yes.
Julie Eiselt.
Yes.
Jocelyn Jones-Noley.
Yes.
Jeff Robbins.
Yes.
Frank Emery.
Yes.
David Longo.
Yes.
David Howard.
Yes.
Dana Stujinski.
Yes.
Clayton Seeley.
Yes.
Christy Long.
Yes.
Charles Bowman.
Yes.
Cameron Pruitt.
Yes.
Brad Simmons.
Yes.
Bob Menzel.
Yes.
And Alicia David Stedman.
Yes.
That is unanimous.
That motion passes. Thank you all. Good job. That's something done. All right, moving on. I think I'm going to turn the floor over to somebody else, which makes me happy. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about, and this subject, this title's a little,
You just laugh.
I'll let Ned explain it, but I'm going to turn it over to Ned to walk us through the next item.
Okay, you want to cover the interlocal agreement?
No, D. Did I skip something?
That's next.
I skipped something. I'm sorry. I'm trying to go home. So, all right, C. Next, we're going to talk about the interlocal agreement. At our last meeting, the board authorized the officers to engage with discussions with the city about the terms of the proposed agreement that would provide the administrative startup support for MPTA. As I shared with you, we actually have been meeting with the city. I'm going to have the CEO provide a summary of the interlocal agreement, and then we'll move forward with the motion. Thank you, Robinson Bradshaw.
Yes, thank you, Chair Howard. So as you're all aware, that the City of Charlotte took action, City Council took action to provide the $4.3 million from City of Charlotte funds to help fund the startup of transition expenses and they adopted a resolution ratifying the interlocal agreement. This will enable the MPTA to satisfy the second side of that, to ratify the interlocal agreement with the City of Charlotte. Again, this is intended to be the startup funds to do the work that you are doing right now to establish your bylaws, your governing policies, your operating procedures and policies, all of those things, as well as help to fund the creation of human resources plans, technology plans, and acquisition of assets, all of those things that are required under the PAVE Act for July 1st of this year. So again, this item is intended to cover eligible administrative startup costs to include legal services, accounting and auditing services, meeting and administrative expenses to the extent there are those, required studies and regulatory filings, and also provide the members of this board with insurance. Again, the interlocal agreement as proposed is included in the packet. And if there are, that is the conclusion of my report on this. If there are questions, happy to answer those.
The only thing outside of what the city council approved is number 8, dispute resolution was added. So just so you know, and the city manager had the right to negotiate that. So a motion to approve this interlocal agreement.
Mr. Chair, Justin Harlow, Mecklenburg County, move to approve the interlocal agreement with the City of Charlotte to support the administrative startup costs for the,
I'm sorry, yes, sir. Seconded by Justin.
and B, adopt the resolution ratifying the interlocal agreement.
I'm sorry, sir. Yes, sir. Seconded by Johnson. No, thank you. Questions on the motion?
Question. Mr. Chair, the signatories right now are not stated on this. It doesn't state who the signatories are, and so I'm wondering who would be signing this document.
Is that covered under rules and procedures? Anybody that we just voted on?
It's also in the resolution, I believe.
Is it?
Yes.
It's right there.
Mr. Howard, you are the
Yes.
signatory.
It says it's me. It's saying
Just,
it's
just a single signatory?
Yes. Number 2.
It's not a check.
resolution.
No, I understand. I'm just asking the question so I'm clear.
Is that it?
You're saying it's in section 2 of the resolution?
The resolution,
Right?
yes.
Okay.
The chair is designee.
It's our resolution, not the
Gotcha.
city's
Okay.
resolution.
All right, that's fine.
Any other questions? All right, let's make, and this is a hand vote. We're not going to do roll call. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Now I pass it to you, Ned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to move through this quickly in the interest of time. As Mr. Cagle just offered, lots of reasons why we need to spend some of the $4.3 million for transition-related matters. I brought this up last time, just a reminder to all of us. We don't own a pencil, a piece of paper, a desk, a computer. We don't own anything right now. We're fortunate that the City of Charlotte has provided us these facilities and staff and everything else to support our efforts as we move from the body that we are to a fully functional body with our own funding. So we're very appreciative of the city's appropriation of the $4.3 million, which is part of what we call Article 43, the existing half-cent sales tax money. I promised at the last board meeting that we would look, and I would work with the CFO for CATS and the CFO for the city to review the financial policies, because if you think about it, that fund balance will eventually move to us. So I can look all of you in the eye and say that the city has excellent internal controls and financial policies, and that the money is being appropriately tended to by the city in a way indirectly on our behalf. So all of the things that Mr. Cagle said that part of the interlocal agreement, items that would be needed for us as part of the transition, you all were fortunate, and we are appreciative as your officers that you gave us the authority to engage Robinson Bradshaw. We're asking for that same authority now with respect to the $4.3 million to continue to appropriate it solely for the items that are mentioned in the interlocal agreement. All relate to transition-related services, board meeting support, engagement of legal counsel, facilitators at our retreats, the engagement of consultants to help us think through all of the transition-related expenses that will exceed $4.3 million before we're done. I also want to add that in the meetings that we've had with the city, we have talked about having them continue in that role beyond July 1st. So in conversations with the North Carolina Department of Revenue, we're appreciative that they are moving on the county's levying of the tax effective July 1st, which is good news for all of us, as well as the towns and the city for the road portions of that money. But we will not have the systems in place, accounts receivable, vendor management, any of those things by July 1st. So we are working through with the city. We will likely come back to you with modifications to the interlocal agreement or new interlocal agreements that might relate to specific topics. So this will be a cadence where we're coming back to you to keep you informed of how we're moving through the transition matters. And make no mistake, we need to move with speed. There's a lot that has to occur. So the nature of the request this evening is to empower the officers and eventually the executive committee with the authority and limited to the categories that were enumerated in the interlocal agreement solely related to transition matters. And we will provide at each monthly meeting a full accounting for how the monies have been appropriated. The young lady on my right constantly talks to me about a budget and line items and the dollar amounts associated with legal costs and transition costs. And as we all engage in the budget for the fiscal year that will end 6/30/27, and we will do that in collaboration with the city because they will be part of that budget as well, we will have more specificity that will benefit from the consultants that we'll hire around what those line items will be with some budget approximations that goes with it. But for now, we need to keep the ball rolling here to move forward on these transition matters. And so I'll offer a motion and seek a second to authorize the officers and eventually the executive committee to work within the parameters of the budget items set forth in the interlocal agreement to spend the $4.3 million.
Is there a second?
I'm going to wait for the motion to pass and then I'll speak.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, who seconded?
Lucia.
Lucia, second. All right, questions on the motion? Yes, Reverend Matt.
I'm Cory Mack, City of Charlotte. I need to bring two issues of concern for me. One of the issues is the necessity for us to have an implicit bias training. Because my concern with giving the executive officers the responsibility of making those kinds of decisions may open us up to further implicit bias. And hiring of folks other than Black and brown people. And I think it's important that we have a more equitable process in terms of who we bring on, who we pay, who we have as consultant, and any other position. I want to ensure that because of the last 12 years of me working on how we were 50th in the country for upward mobility for Black people, it's important that we don't continue in the downward spiral. So I just want to raise that issue, that we still haven't had an implicit bias training. Maybe we'll add it to our retreat, but it is necessary.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Cameron and then.
Cameron?
Okay,
then
go ahead.
Lindsay.
I'll go last.
I brought this up last month, and I just want to reiterate, we haven't seen a draft and revised draft yet of the Code of Ethics policy, and we're about to, again, direct the Executive Committee to spend $4.3 million without a line item, without a binding Code of Ethics. I know we have general rules, but again, I just want to uplift that. It gives me a little bit of uneasiness. I'll be voting yes, because we have to move forward, but I would like to see us have a more robust Code of Ethics as we move forward.
Our intent is to bring it back next month. So, I mean, we are building it as we're flying, for real.
And there's oversight with the city here. We can't just tell the city they cooperate.
Yes, sir.
I'm happy to hear that last point that you made, Ned, about oversight from the city. I don't see that in here anyplace, and I didn't hear that part in the motion. I am.
It was in the interlocal we just voted on.
I saw the interlocal agreement. Again, I want to make sure, though, that, for one, I'm concerned that we're approving allocations that we haven't seen. So we don't know how much is being allocated to consultants. We don't know how much is being allocated for legal services. I know we're going to vote on this legal counsel agreement, which does not have a limit to it. I'm very apprehensive about us voting to authorize expenditures which we haven't seen. And I'm also uncomfortable with the notion that you would execute a contract that the board has not approved. I believe that any contracts that are entered into need to come back to the board for adoption, even during this period of time. And so I'm very concerned that we would be getting into contractual relationships that the board has not approved. And then lastly, there's a statement in the write-up that says that there will be an impact on CAT's fiscal year 2026 budget. And we have not had any explanation or any sort of background on what those kinds of impacts are, and how does moving this money around impact the ongoing operations of CATS in its 2026 budget.
So thank you for all the questions, all very valid questions, valid points. We can't give anybody here a line item budget until we have consultants that can help us understand what it's going to cost to set up computer systems in the cloud. You get the gist here. We have to start somewhere. Any contract would be basically ours to begin with. So we would come to the board with any contract that would have any degree of materiality, however you want to define that. But we're not going to spend a whole lot of money between now and the next board meeting. We can update you constantly on what the efforts are. But if we have to move folks at the pace of meeting to meeting for approvals to get people engaged, we're not going to make July 1, we're not going to make December 31st. So I understand what you're saying. We're going to have full accountability and full transparency with this board. What was the last part of the question? It was about. I think you got it all. Okay. Oh, the impact on the budget. It's a negative variance. The budget that CATS is operating under was approved spring of last year. They didn't contemplate this. So this is falling under the budget. This is part of the city, the MPC approved budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. And this will be accounted for through that budget, but it will be a variance because it wasn't budgeted, it wasn't contemplated at the time the budget was set. But it will be counted for in that budget.
It's just acknowledging that this is being paid, the $4.3 million, and anything that it is used to pay for is being paid for out of Article 43 sales tax revenues, which is the existing half-cent transit sales tax. That it really wasn't. It doesn't mean that CATS is going to do $4.3 million less of something. It's just acknowledging the fact that it is being paid out of Article 43 half-cent sales tax revenues, is really what it's trying to say.
That was my concern. I wanted to make sure we weren't taking something from the bucket that CATS was spending or needed to spend and putting it over here in this bucket, and we're going to spend it on something different. So that was the point I wanted.
Julie.
Well, actually, David had his hand up first. David, you still got something?
I answered my own question.
Good.
Can all of y'all do that? Everybody do that?
Yes, Julie, real quick.
Just a suggestion on this, can we not, as the action item, vote to accept the appropriation and then vote to accept the appropriation for the purposes of contracting with a consultant who will then present us with a budget?
Yes.
I think it's kind of saying the same thing. I mean, we're not intending to do anything, but the point is just to keep the process going.
All right.
I mean, that's to be honest with you.
I mean, I too was looking for the back page when it said the MPTA budget.
I know.
Because there was no budget.
I know.
It's not a budget, it's just accepting.
We should have called that something else, so that's,
But we know we're confined right now to 4.3,
Okay,
and that's
fine.
how we characterize
That's
it as a budget for now.
Bob, I saw your hand, and then Wyatt, and then see if we can vote on this and get 14 or not.
I just think for context, what is the difference in revenue that we will lose if we do not hit the July 1st date?
So I thank you, but I was going to say, the chair, wouldn't want this meeting to pass without us expressing significant appreciation to the Department of Revenue. This is a challenge for them to collect this tax as of July 1st. They assure us that they can do it. And it's about $60 million, or $80 million, I'm sorry, estimated per quarter. 60% of that, about 48 million, 50 million per quarter would come to us for transit expenditures, and the balance would go to the towns and the city for road expenditures. Significant.
Substantive.
So we're very appreciative.
But we're going to keep talking to revenue with the city and the county so we can all figure out what to bring back to this body.
I just brought the question up just because I thought it would be helpful for the board to hear the
Amount of
magnitude.
money that's coming, yeah. 4.3 is very small in comparison. Bob, and then we're going to do a vote, please.
Bob Menzel, Town of Cornelius. I was listening to Ned, and he was talking about all these new systems that are going to be brought up, and I don't want to get too far down in the operating weeds tonight, but are we going to have to rebuild the entire operational architecture, infrastructure for the transit authority, or are we going to be able to transition some of the existing CATS capabilities into the MPTA?
We don't know, but the answer, I think, is yes.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so.
No, I think the fact that we have to rebuild, I think the answer to that question is probably yes, but we don't know.
Okay, fair enough. We'll talk
That's why
more
we're
later.
going. That's why we're
Thank
going to
you.
get a consultant. All right, ready for a vote? All right, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, please. We'll stop trying to say aye. Can somebody count, please? Are you counting? Make sure we get 14.
You got more than 14.
I know, but we're going. I see some hands down, so I want to make sure we account for all the hands. What you got?
I can't see who's not raising their hand in the corner, so I can't
Let's just do
answer
a
that
roll call.
accurately.
Or just raise your hand, then.
Well, no, I'm going to try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. All opposed? All 27 people here? Did I miss somebody?
Bishop
No,
Walker.
26.
Bishop Walker's not here. All right, so 2
Was
again.
Mr. Lindsay the only
No,
opposition?
and Reverend Mack.
Reverend Mack.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't see that. Thank you.
All right. That motion passes. Thank you all for the lively discussion. So moving on to item E, I'm going to turn it over to Frank.
Good evening. You all remember at one of our earlier full board meetings, in fact, we were talking about the bylaws, and the group raised the concern that we needed legal counsel to help us with the review of the documents and their interaction. Based on that stated interest, the chair asked me to make a recommendation as to a firm that could help us with that. You've been introduced to Robinson Bradshaw and seen them some. So in any event, we asked them to help us. What you have in front of you is their engagement letter. It lays out the rates that are charged for the lawyers you see here in the room. It talks about the terms of the engagement and how we can end it at our, if we elect to do that. The issue here, well, not issue, in addition to having the legal services that have resulted in the documents and the advice we're getting in and outside these meetings, the other reason it's vitally important to have an agreement like this was to ensure that the MTPA had lawyers who were obligated to this entity. right? So the lawyers are nodding their heads. So you did have, this is nothing negative about any of the lawyers who work for the city or anyone else, but it's vitally important that every lawyer in a case or in an item know exactly who their client is, and so that they can deal with things like sharing confidential information or not, and to whom they owe advice. And so this agreement is here in front of you, and in fact, of course, they've been operating in furtherance of this now on our anticipation that this group would agree that this is something that, having asked for, you would then conclude. And so I would move that, conclude meaning authorize officers to sign. So I'm happy to take any questions on it, but I will move its adoption by this group. Mr. Chair, if there's a second, and if there are questions, I'm happy to
And properly moved and second by Frank and then Ned. Any questions on the motion? Yes, sir, Mr. Anthony. Mr.
Chair, thank you. I appreciate the work that the officers have done to bring forward this. I'm struggling to reconcile the parties to the engagement letter with the language that is set out in the interlocal agreement in section, I guess I'm going to take us back to that interlocal agreement, but it's in section E. So it's section 4, responsible parties, and it's item B4, where it says city responsibilities. And in that section, it says that the city will be the contracting party for any startup support covered by this agreement. Thus, any such contracts may be subject to City Council, to Charlotte City Council approval, and must comply with the city's procurement policy, city standard, contracting terms, and applicable law. Any contracts for startup support will specify that while the city is the contracting party, the startup support will be provided to and for the MPTA. So I'm just looking for some clarification on the parties. It appears that the contracting party in our engagement letter is the MPTA directly as opposed to the city. And I just need some help on how we reconcile that agreement with this language in the interlocal agreement.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. I don't know that they, you say reconcile. How about I help you understand how they work together? So there's no dissonance between the city and MTPA having this interlocal agreement and this separate agreement we have here today that specifies these specific services directed just to us here. So these two things can and do work together. Second thing is the city attorney has endorsed this agreement in writing for us as well. So all of the parties recognize the need both for specific counsel for us for these purposes and for us, the MTPA and the government, the other governmental authorities, to work cooperatively to move through this unique situation we're in, because what we're doing is building a multi-billion-dollar company. At the same time, we're trying to run existing services and at the same time ensure that we meet all our deadlines.
And transition and everything else we're trying to do.
So that's the answer to your question. Did I answer it?
You did. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Lucille.
So there is no explicit deliverable. It's just legal services in general. So is there an end or we'll just continue to have it until we need it?
I'm trying to say, but I understand your question. So maybe the best way to say that is this sets out the rules of the road with our relationship between the law firm and us. We have the authority to say at any moment, this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon or this morning, we end, and then they send us a final bill for that point.
Right, and that's clear here.
Yeah, well, it is clear the way that works, and that is an absolute.
That is everybody except one, so, and all opposed. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So we have one last issue. We're almost at the end. and that is talking about risk management services. This is a relationship that we have with the city, and the CFO for the city is actually here tonight. And I lost my place. Am I supposed to say anything other than introduce you, Matt? I don't think I am. So if you can come on up, we're going to talk about.
Here. Matt Prested and Mindy Sanchez are both here.
So we have Matt, the city CFO, who's going to actually talk to us about this item, which is the city services to cover us. So.
Good evening. Again, Matt Hasted, City CFO, and I have Mindy Sanchez, our Chief Risk Officer, who is a part of the Finance Department. So what we're bringing forward today is a request for the MPTA is considering asking for the City of Charlotte to continue risk management service for the MPTA. So currently, CATS receives risk management services from City Risk Management, which we also provide for aviation, Charlotte Water, stormwater, but we also provide it to Mecklenburg County, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, CMS Schools, CRVA, and Medic. So it is very common for us to provide it for external entities. And we are actually already in the process, and a part of some of the services that risk management provides, it provides procuring and binding insurance coverages, workers' compensation, property and casualty claims, investigation and handling, as well as safety and security. So those, yeah. And one of the things we're actually engaged in right now is already starting to procure insurance coverages for CATS starting 7/1. So our insurance year follows our fiscal year, so it's 7/1 to June 30th. So as a part of working with our current insurance providers for CATS, we've already been able to provide public officials insurance for the MPTA board. So that goes through this fiscal year, and we're already in the process of engaging on our insurance coverages for next year. And this will really help ensure that we have clean coverage for the insurance underwriters to know that there still be that security and safety as far as how all those claims are handled going into the next insurance year, so that they're sort of clear that we are able to provide those services on behalf. So I believe today's action is to formally request the city to provide those services. Later in February, City Council will consider an interlocal agreement or authorizing the manager to negotiate an interlocal agreement, and then it will come back to this board to finally approve. So there will be an opportunity for the review, I believe, the MPTA, and Brad certainly jump in if I'm misstating anything, but I think this is requesting to start that process, but then ultimately the board will have the ability to fully review what that agreement looks like.
That's correct.
And by the way, just so we're clear, throughout the rest of this year, it's already covered business as usual in the city budget. Yes. And actually, we become responsible for it once we take responsibility for CATS, which would be whenever the tax is levied, supposedly, whenever that happens. So just so you know, we're continuing and talking about going forward a relationship with the city to provide us the risk management coverage. So a motion by Julie to approve the action in the
second the motion
in the write-up, and seconded by Justin. Any questions on this? Yes, Anthony.
Just one question about overlap. It sounds like there will be some overlap. Can you talk about what overlap coverages between CATS and the MPTA will occur during this process?
Sure, and Mindy, I'll maybe start, and then Mindy Sanchez can jump in. So I think that there will absolutely be times where it's sort of both, and I'd say that, the city, as long as CATS operates as a city department, it will be a full City of Charlotte coverage. And as the MPTA, whether it's getting office space or employees or other types of things, by having this agreement, we'll be able to add those services as needed for the MPTA. And sort of the CATS budget will cover everything that's business as usual. And then if there's anything above and beyond that is sort of but for the MPTA, then that will be a cost out, and that could be a part of the $4.3 million, and then the consultants that sort of have that. And maybe I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, so we've confirmed with our brokers that there will always be coverage for the MPTA regardless of whether the assets have transferred or not. So, as Matt said, during the time that CATS is still in service, and all of those policies that are currently in effect will cover anything to the extent that this authority is involved or is named in any type of claim or litigation. And so the policies will always overlap, and then at such point in time when it's determined that this authority needs its own standalone policy, risk management will make sure that that's procured in a timely manner. But you'll never have a lapse in coverage. for this authority.
And we'll just add that risk management will work on investigating claims and handling claims, but ultimately be with your legal counsel that would actually sort of direct the board on any legal determinations that the board would need to make at that time. So we're able to handle claims, but you rely on your attorneys and your client, whether that's in-house or external, to make any legal agreements at that time.
So follow up on that. So at what point would we know whether or not there's any portion of the 4.3 million that we've been appropriated will need to be used to cover the cost of coverage for us during this initial period of time?
So I think at this time, there's no identified need for it. I think it'd be working with the consultants, because it's really sort of but for when we need to determine a standalone INT policy, because you have your own cyber versus we have our cyber. So it would be sort of adding something new on top of you rent office space versus, and that would be a part of working with, I think, Ned, and sort of that reporting out as far as you're engaging in something, and that would trigger us needing to add a specific coverage that can't be covered under the existing CATS policy to the board.
I think one thing that we're seeing as I'm seeing as a common theme tonight is a lot of concern. A budget is a very important document. We all know that. And right now, it's $4.3 million for these three things. So I think that, and again, this item highlights that as well. As we go into the next fiscal year, so CATS's budget is complete, right? It's with the city of Charlotte, and there are some expenses like these that are covered. They're in our budget. They are not unbudgeted, but they are being paid for out of our budget. As we go into next fiscal year, as we approach July 1st, there will be a very explicit, discrete, line-by-line budget. And that budget will really, to Matt's point, be a little bit of a hybrid budget, because some of it's going to be City of Charlotte, some of it's going to be MPTA, and some of it's sort of a mix of that. And so over the next 2 or so months, we're in budget season, and you will start to see, this body will start to see that explicit line-by-line budget, and that will help to answer, I think, many of the questions that came tonight. Because that's sort of the next step, and that is, it's a legal requirement, and we will have that, and this body will be a part of that.
Yeah, this is just one item of a huge budget. So we've been talking to the city about how we participate. Right now, we're talking about the Finance and Audit Committee, whenever it stood up, would participate in that process around the CATS budget. How that happens, what that approval is, we don't know. But because we will be inheriting that budget in the next fiscal year sometime, we will participate in it. All right? So any other questions on the motion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by raising your hand. All right, all opposed? That carried unanimously. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sticking around. It felt like a city council zoning meeting tonight. Anything else for the order of the day before we adjourn? All right, Anthony.
Mr. Chair, I have one question for other business. I think the statute requires that the MPTA provide a report to the General Assembly by February 1st, and I just wanted to know whether or not we were able to accomplish that or not, or would we exempt from that requirement?
The financial report?
No, it's part of, I think it's under Section 924 of the statute. It said something about you have to provide an annual report to the General Assembly every February. And since we were formed in last year, just wanted to find out whether or not that was something we had to
so
do
I think
this year
that's,
or not.
I will double check it. I believe that's referring to your ACFR, your annual comprehensive financial report. So it's prepared, and then it must be delivered. It's prepared for the prior year, and it must be delivered by February. So we did not provide that because you do not have, the MPTA didn't exist in last fiscal year. And so it becomes a moot requirement. In the future, you will need to do that, and we will absolutely be providing that by February.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're getting from the sidelines that what he just said was correct, who helped us with all that. So thank you, Larry. All right, anything else? I did miss one thing. You corrected me. I do need a motion to extend the Bylaws Committee to the end of March. So can I get a motion real quick? Moved by everybody, seconded by everybody, because we want to go home. Just pick somebody. All in favor, let it know by saying aye. Opposed, the same sign. All right, I move adjournment. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.